Pancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeja Radhanam Bhavebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hari Hari. I'm very grateful to be amongst you tonight. Vishnumurti Prabhu, you have traveled across continents to give us your divine association. Thank you very much. Where are you coming from?
Radhadesh.
Radhadesh. I was longing to go there.
We have heard.
But this world is such a place that things come into our lives. Because Shamsundar Prabhu and Gopinath Prabhu were going through with this surgery, I spent 10 extra days in Chicago to be with them. And I had to change my schedule. But it is my great aspiration to serve the devotees of Radhadesh. If you could kindly convey that message. If they still permit me. Mercy. Yes, as we are talking, the surgery is taking place of liver transplant. It's very moving. Someone willing to sacrifice so much to help another Vaishnava. I was thinking to give £1 million donation. You know, you may have to eat simpler. You may not. But to be willing to risk your life and have absolutely miserable physical suffering for a minimum of 9 weeks and subject yourself to all kinds of diseases. That's a serious service. As we were speaking previously, in the medical world, it's practically unheard of for a living donor of such a serious organ to come out of the immediate family. Who cares about somebody so much that they're willing to suffer extensively for 9 weeks and may not even live through it to help someone else? And in this case, someone he never met. But when I spoke to Shamsundar Prabhu yesterday, he told me that Gopinath was ecstatic because the day of the offering was approaching fastly. And he has a wife and a 2-year-old child. And the 2-year-old child is just learning to run and talking all those broken words that the Bhagavatam says completely captivates the mind of the Father. He was enthusiastic. There were 35 others that volunteered. And he was praying to Krishna that let me be the one to make this sacrifice. So it is quite an extreme offering of Vaishnava Seva, but a very beautiful example. And I spoke to Gopinath day before yesterday also, and he was just, his mood was, I don't deserve to do this to someone so dear to Prabhupada. I have no qualification. It's just causeless mercy. He was just thanking everyone for giving him the chance to serve in this way. And he was calling a lot of people to get blessings. Giriraj Swami Maharaj, Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj, Sachinandan Swami Maharaj, and Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj. And he also calls one doctor from Bhaktivedanta Hospital. I won't mention names. And this particular doctor told him, the biggest danger of this surgery is that you become proud. They must have been listening to some lectures of somebody I know. But he said the biggest danger of this surgery is not that you might die or that you're going to suffer and you might get all diseases. Biggest danger is because so many people are going to be so proud of you for doing it that you might become proud. Hare Krishna. So then he actually started getting scared. He wasn't scared of dying. He wasn't scared of the suffering that was definitely going to come on him for months afterward. But he was now, this devotee invested this fear in him that he might get proud. Because people are going to say, you gave your liver to Shamsundar Prabhu. He says, yes. Vaishnavas are very special. This is a very important principle that is a prominent trait of a Vaishnava, and which nourishes, sustains, and expands Vaishnava community, is each devotee's character. That we're so honest, we're so selfless and willing to make personal sacrifices for the sake of others, that people can trust us. Because without that willingness to make sacrifices, people can't really trust us. And without trust, relationships are superficial at the best. Prabhupada said the fiber of our society is love and trust. It's not a cheap thing. In our lives, we should be living in such a way that people can easily trust us. That means when we give our word, we're willing to live and die to keep our word. It's very difficult to trust somebody who's selfish. Because we know for their own sake, for the sake of me, we can adjust, readjust, justify so many ways. But when we have an actual service attitude, selfless service attitude, to that extent, to be trusted. And yes, by chanting Hare Krishna, by performing our sadhana, it purifies our heart from these blockages, anarthas, that keep us from living in this type of service attitude, being trustworthy. But we must also live by it while we're chanting Hare Krishna. We have to live by these principles now. Must be our determination. I've met young children. They're not young children. They're adults. But they were born in our movement. And they have expressed to me, some of them, that when they were children, they were taught very strongly to chant, and they were seeing certain adults coming to Mangal Arati, chanting the rounds, publicly, speaking nice slokas and philosophy publicly, but who didn't have good character, who were sometimes harsh, cruel, uncaring, even abusive. It created in many of these children a psychological condition deep within where they couldn't not connect all that misbehavior with going to Mangal Arati and chanting the rounds. And it's very difficult for them to chant because they have a psychological block. And we have, adults who have gone through the same syndrome. And the public also. So yes, our sadhana is of the essence. Without it, we cannot transcend the modes of material nature. But unless we live by our free will, with determination, to have the character that people can actually trust, then however much sadhana we perform, we will not transcend the modes of material nature. We have to come to that platform. Devotees cannot be harsh to each other. Unless it's for a very therapeutic, intelligent, practical reason, which is rare. And that's not really harsh. That's being assertive. There's a difference between being assertive and being harsh. Prabhupada could be assertive, but he was not harsh. It cured people. It didn't drive them away. Why? Because they trusted him. They trusted him wholeheartedly. The other night we were having a beautiful meeting with disciples and beloved followers of His Holiness Srila Bhakti-tirtha Swami Maharaj. Haribol. And one devotee asked, my Guru Maharaj told us we should be open with each other. But it's very difficult to be open sometimes. Unless there's trust. If we're not open, it's hard for people to trust us because they don't really know what's going on. But it's hard to be open. You don't trust the people you're being open with. I was told about one particular godbrother of mine who revealed an internal problem that he had to a senior godbrother. Confided, trying to get shelter, trying to get guidance. And then that older godbrother, somehow or other, there was some conflict with that person, small one, and in a Srimad Bhagavatam class, told everybody what that devotee's problem was. Haribol. That devotee was so disgraced. He felt so betrayed. He left that zone. He left that zone. It's never ever, to this day, never really recovered. How can he ever confide in somebody again? We have to be very aware of the responsibility we have in our dealings with others. It could cause permanent damage. So please take this very seriously. Gopinath and Shamsundar Prabhu's example is that to be willing to endure even great difficulties to do the right thing, to be compassionate, is the basis of Vaishnava culture. Because to live as a Vaishnava, to be great, like that example of the redwood tree I gave, they're the greatest trees. Why? Because they withstand anything and don't move from their position. Yes? Other trees fall. Other trees just wither away. But the redwood, whether there's tornadoes or forest fires or rainstorms or cold or anything else. They remain fixed where they are. And they tolerate. And by tolerating and remaining fixed, they grow higher and higher and wider, and they're the greatest trees from the point of view of size and age. Well, similarly, we have to keep our roots in Krishna. And we have to remain fixed. Vyavashayatmaka buddhir ekeha kudunandana bahushaka yanantascha buddhayo vyavashayana. Those who are on this path are resolute in purpose. They're determined. Their aim is one. We remain fixed. And sometimes it's really joyful. But the world is created in such a way that it will not always be so joyful. But if we remain fixed, well-rooted where we are, without moving here and there, in our resolve, in our ideals, in our character, then our bhakti grows higher and higher and higher and more encompassing. And it becomes great. That is a Mahatma. That is Bhagavad Gita. Dualities of so many sorts come, but we remain fixed. And the good and the bad, everything that happens to us, whatever comes, if we just remain fixed in our character and our sadhana, in our service attitude, every situation helps us to grow stronger, stronger, stronger. And our bhakti goes higher, higher, and higher. Taror iva sihishnana. Be tolerant like a tree. And keep growing like that tree. Our roots are very much the principles we live by, along with our sadhana. It cannot be emphasized enough. Lord Chaitanya said, just chant the holy names carefully and do not criticize others. I will deliver you. Good character, good sadhana. Prabhupada said to that PhD candidate who was trying to interview him, he said, what is the use of philosophy without good character? And in many ways, we should continue doing our sadhana, no matter what. But there's very, very minimal value to sadhana without good character. And sometimes in the past, in the name of expanding our movement, devotees say things that are not true to the secular world for this purpose or that purpose. But observation it's very dangerous. Because generally the same people, when they get in that mode, they're very, very careless about truthfulness even amongst devotees. Because they're in that mindset. It's not really important. The end justifies the means. Sometimes it does. But But that's we have to be very careful. We're playing with fire when we deal with that philosophy of the end justifies the means, especially if the means are not according to moral principles. Now, Arjuna, Yudhisthira was told to lie. Yes? Or Dronacharya was just going wild, killing everybody. Nobody could stop him. So Krishna told Yudhisthira, tell him that his son Ashwatthama is dead. But the fact is, he wasn't dead. So Yudhisthira hesitated. Because he hesitated, the wheels of his chariot, which never touched the ground, hit the ground. He hesitated to follow the absolute truth. He considered a relative truth to be equal to or better than the absolute truth. For a moment, just in hesitation. There are just different versions of the story. But then somebody killed an elephant named Ashwatthama. So he said, see, Ashwatthama is dead, so go tell him Ashwatthama is dead. You just couldn't say something that wasn't true. But Yudhisthira was so honest. And he went to Dronacharya, but Krishna knows. He said, Ashwatthama, the elephant, is dead. He said that to Drona. But Krishna blew his conch shell when he said the elephant. So then Drona thought, my son is dead. Very difficult. And then Bhima started really telling him about all of the inappropriate things he had done. He just gave up the battle and sat in meditation. So devotees really like that story. And they have used it and misused it for so many things. For Krishna, we could say anything, we could do everything, no problem. Our wheels will always be above the ground. But that was an emergency situation directly under the order of Krishna. Sometimes in emergency situations, to save a person's life, we may refer to absolute truths in replacement of relative truths. But in dealings with devotees, and except for very, very serious emergencies to save someone, in our dealings with the public also, if people don't trust us, if devotees don't trust each other, it's very hard for anyone to make advancement. And if the public doesn't trust us, it's very hard for anyone to benefit from what we're giving them. So very high character is what a Vaishnava is about, very high integrity, and very powerful sadhana. And that's what Prabhupada expected of us. And in order to do either one or both, we have to do both. We have to be tolerant like a tree. That means we have to endure whatever difficulties to preserve and pursue our ideals. It is said, if you do not have an ideal you're willing to die for, you really have nothing fulfilling to live for. And this is what will make our society attractive. When there's not hypocrisy. When there's not sectarianism. When there's not petty egotism and selfishness. When we're willing to live and die, to live according to the principles that Srila Prabhupada has given us. When we can actually live for people can trust us as their well-wishers. But in order for people to really trust us as their well-wishers, we actually have to be their well-wishers. Not just the senior devotees. Senior devotees are not always advanced. Advanced devotees are those who are like that. And the way to make advancement is to be like that. Prabhupada said the ends and the means are the same in Krishna consciousness. What we're supposed to be, we are now, from the very beginning. And by doing that, realization comes. And that is our spiritual advancement. The holy name of Krishna is the prime benediction for all humanity. It is the ultimate gift of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And it's the basis of our whole spiritual culture. We cannot take it lightly. We must take it seriously. Reading Srila Prabhupada's books. Really trying to understand Prabhupada's books. Hearing the glories of Krishna. Either in classes, through tapes. It's not an option. It's a necessity. To keep our intelligence, to keep our discrimination, to keep our heart focused. And friendship amongst devotees based on a service attitude. We have to do that. There are some spiritual teachers who do not emphasize these things. They emphasize a little pranayama or a little meditation or a little asanas or giving some charity. You could be a vegetarian, it's better, but don't worry about it. And we could become more pious by following like that. And that's good, it's elevating people. But the Krishna consciousness movement, it's something very deep and very profound. Because this movement isn't about making people a little more pious. Of course, if we can make people a little more pious, that's good. But this movement is really for those people who sincerely want to transcend the modes of material nature. People who really want to go beyond the false ego. For people who want to awaken the highest state of transcendence. Prema Bhakti. That is the purpose of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission. And to to practice all of the things we're talking about are not an option. We must be serious enough to do these things if we want to approach Prema Bhakti. And this is the meaning of a disciple. One who has that willingness and that determination to live by these principles, to die by these principles. And it is the most blissful life. It's not cheap. Things that are received cheaply we do not esteem them with much value. But things that are achieved even through great difficulties, we can really appreciate the value of that. Krishna does not give Prema Bhakti cheaply. Lord Chaitanya gives it cheaper than anyone else has ever given. But even that cannot be taken cheaply. He's giving it very freely. But Taror iva seheshnana. Still, for that tree of our bhakti to grow, we have to be willing to remain fixed in our position. The position of our sadhana, the position of our morality, the position of our our relationships with others. And very important, the position of the integrity of our character. Through the nice days and the hard days. Through the cool breezes and the forest fires. But that's what will make us great. And that is what Prabhupada wanted to give us. That is the gift of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Each and every one of us can, in this life, achieve the ultimate state of love of God if we just follow these principles we're speaking this evening. Attach yourself to hearing about Krishna. Attach yourself to chanting Krishna's names and glories. Attach yourself to the service of the Vaishnavas. Attach yourself to trying to be compassionate to others. And do it all with Vaishnava character and Vaishnava integrity. So that Guru can trust you. So that the Vaishnavas can trust you. So that the conditioned souls can trust you. Then, when you have that trust, you can render the qualitative greatest service. And in Prabhupada's family, we really, through these principles, we want to create unity and joy. In the story of Bali Maharaj, he was a man of integrity. He promised little Vamanadev, I'll give you your 3 steps of life. No, he did. Actually, yeah, he's promised, I'll give you 3 steps of life. And Shukracharya intervened. Said, no, don't give. Shukracharya was a very powerful person. He was so powerful that previously Bali Maharaj died in the battlefield, and Shukracharya brought him back to life, and then did yajnas and gave him the power to conquer the demigods. And he was a very powerful person. He said, Bali, no. He gave him all kinds of scriptural justifications to break his promise. He said, if you keep your promise, please know what's going to happen. He's going to take everything away from you. And then he's going to imprison you and humiliate you. That's what's going to happen. Don't do it. It's an order. And if you do it, I curse you. Hare Krishna. Now, how many of us would be willing to keep our word to that little dwarf, knowing that we're being cursed by Shukracharya? No, as Hare Krishna devotees, sometimes we see the dramas of, the story of Narsingha Dev, and we see Shukracharya, and he's usually some spaced out type of brahmachari that plays Shukracharya. Yes. Jagai and Madhai. When we do these Jagai and Madhai plays, usually everyone's laughing at Jagai and Madhai. How many of you seen Jagai Madhai plays? Please raise hand. How many of you have laughed? Huh? Well, I'll tell you something. Read the Shastra. Nobody ever lived and laughed at Jagai and Madhai. They were serious, cruel demons. Huh? And this, how many people laugh at Adolf Hitler? Well, Jagai and Madhai was a lot bigger than him. They may not have done the same amount of, systematic, horrible things, but they were more powerful and very, very sinful, very cruel. Well, Shukracharya is the guru for the asuras, with powers like anything, and knowledge like anything, and charisma like anything. He's a staunch person. And he's telling Bali, don't do it. I curse you if you dare to keep that promise. Bali Maharaj thought about it. I can't lie. I can't do it. He's a Brahmin. And if he is Vishnu, my grandfather would be very proud of me. Prahlad. He had everything to lose to maintain his dignity. And he didn't know if he would gain anything. Nobody came and told him that actually, if you do this, then you'll get to go to Sutala Loka, and the Supreme Lord will be your doorkeeper. That all came after. All he knew is cursed, lose everything, be punished, complete dark, unknown destiny. But he had that faith. Doesn't matter. I must do the right thing. And everything Shukracharya predicted happened just like that. He lost everything, totally humiliated, tied up by the ropes of Garuda, or Varuna, brought to court. And the most beautiful thing happened then. Here he is standing, he's tied up like a prisoner. Now, seconds, minutes before, he was the proprietor of all the planets up to Swargaloka. And now, he had nothing, absolutely nothing. Then Prahlad Maharaj appeared. And he couldn't even bow down to him because he was tied up. Just went like this. And Prahlad praised him. You are so fortunate. I'm so proud of you. You have maintained your dignity, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead is showing you His great mercy now by taking away everything. And because you are the Lord's going to take away everything anyway. But because He allowed Him to, in His life, He attained the ultimate perfection in His life. Mahajano yena gata sapanta. He's a Mahajan, and the only way to perfection is to follow in the footsteps of such Mahajans. Temptations will come. Obstacles will come. Hardships will come. But we'll follow the four regulative principles. We'll continue chanting our 16 rounds at least. We'll continue hearing Krishna Katha. And we'll maintain the integrity of a Vaishnava. We'll be honest. We'll be willing to serve and willing to be there for each other, no matter what. That is a real disciple. And those qualifications will attract the Lord to elevate us to the spiritual world. So Prabhupada preached in such a way that he did not attract people who want cheap things for a cheap price. He preached in such a way for people who want the realest, highest thing. And all that's required, really, is that we're very sincere. This is my simple message to everyone tonight. Don't be proud, be humble, but be firm, determined. Attract people's love and trust by your integrity and your service attitude. That is what I am begging from all of you. Hare Krishna. Was this a depressing lecture or a happy lecture?
Enlightening lecture.
I don't know. Is there any questions or comments? Hari Hari. If you want to ask a question, nobody will know who's asking. It's an opportune moment to ask any question that you never wanted to ask in public. So no one will see who it is. It will be an unembodied voice. Is there any questions? Yes.
Huh? so I hope you can hear me. My question relates to the point that you were talking about.
Before you ask your question, I'd like everyone to acknowledge that this Divine Personality, Kumari Priya, do you all know her? I first met her, my very dear older senior god sister, Rukmini Prabhu, introduced me to her, like her own daughter, yes. And she was living in Washington, D.C. and area. Became very, very sincere devotee. And then went to Radhadesh to study there. Did very well. Then went to Oxford University to study. And Saturday, this little Kumari Priya, I can't believe it. She graduated with the highest honors of the highest grades in her entire class from Oxford University. I don't know what to say. I went to 1 year of junior college and got pretty bad grades. So I went to one semester, not even a year, one semester of a junior college, and I thought I got good grades, but then I recently saw my report card, and but we're very proud because she's doing it for Krishna. She went to the college. She didn't just decide. Devotees encouraged her to do it. And she asked, is this the best way I can serve? And devotees, everyone gave her full encouragement. She did it for Krishna. Thank you. Do you still have a question? Now nobody will know it's you.
You were talking earlier about a point that one disciple of Radhanath Swami made with the darshan, about how it's sometimes hard to be open among devotees because there's not trust. And I was thinking I've encountered before the situation with different devotees that sometimes devotees have authorities whom they don't feel a natural trust for, but at the same time it's very important, I guess, for one's individual spiritual progress to be able to be open with one's authorities. And I was just wondering, how should one approach this situation if you're a devotee who's in a situation where you don't feel naturally open to your immediate authority?
Did everyone hear the question?
No.
It was like they said no, it's such harmony. Was that rehearsed?
I don't know if it'll be any better with this, but we'll see. I was just saying that sometimes in relation to the point of feeling naturally trustful of people who are, I guess, just devotees around one, that sometimes devotees somehow, for whatever reason, don't feel, I guess, a natural connection or a natural trust with whoever happens to be an authority or a senior devotee in the community. And I was just wondering how, at the same time, it's very important to be opened and to act with trust for one's own spiritual life, to make sure that one isn't becoming duplicitous. So I just wondered, how should one approach such a situation, or if one sees a devotee in such a situation, what kind of advice would be appropriate for that?
She has been trained by the highest educational institution on the planet in how to put her teachers on the spot. Of course, ideally, our authorities should be living in such a way and acting in such a way that we can have great trust and be able to open ourselves in that way. But if we don't have that faith, for whatever reason, then two things we could do. One is we could seek the association of people we really do trust, so that we can open our hearts to them and seek guidance and reveal our minds. 6 loving exchanges amongst Vaishnavas. Really, the basis of all of them is love and trust. So whether that person or those persons are near or far, it is important to have those relationships. And second of all, we should all take that as a responsibility to be that person for others. To be a servant without ulterior motives. Usually the reason people don't trust each other is ulterior motives. Yes? And ulterior motives is totally contrary to the whole basis of Krishna consciousness. Ahoitikya pratihata. Our service should be unmotivated, uninterrupted. So we should try to restrain our ulterior motives and live by a real service attitude. Our motivation is to serve. Our motivation is to help. Our motivation is not something egoistic or selfish. It's not about me. It's about being an instrument. So we should strive to live like that, so that people can open to ourselves. And sometimes we find, when we strive to live like that, then we can actually recognize it in others too. It may be there, but the world is a mirror of our own mind. If we're duplicitous, if we have our separate agendas, sometimes we tend to see everybody like that. So we should try to be the best we could be. And we should develop those types of good relationships with people that we do trust. And in the meanwhile, whoever our authority is, we may not be able to open up in those situations the way you're saying, but we should respect them and honor their position as an authority. Yes? That's also important. Does that answer your question? Is there any other questions? Yes.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
When we have some teachers who are not in line with Srila Prabhupada's teachings, how much is that influencing us?
What type of teachers are you speaking about?
Like teachers, like in school or when you make an apprenticeship, or like who are devotees but not in line with Srila Prabhupada's teaching.
If we're in school, of course, depending on the subject we're studying, we're there to learn a trade. So we don't put our spiritual trust in that person. We basically just learn the trade from that person. But we put our trust, we put our faith in our spiritual conception in those who are in line with Srila Prabhupada. Yes? We could learn so many things, but we actually put our faith and find our shelter in Prabhupada and those who are in line with Srila Prabhupada. And to the degree we're very, very deeply situated in gaining shelter from Srila Prabhupada and those who are instruments of Srila Prabhupada's compassion. To that degree, we could learn from many people and not be contaminated, but actually be enriched with more skills to use for Srila Prabhupada. So it is important, if we're doing those things, there is a danger of being distracted, being diverted. Unless we have very good sadhana, and we are seeking good association, and we are going deeply into the substance of bhakti. We could be carried away. There is a danger. We should be aware of that danger. And that should just impel us to be more serious. Haribo. Yes.
What does it mean to be open?
What does it mean to be open?
Yes.
It means to not be closed. It really means to be open to receive mercy. To open our hearts to receive mercy, we have to seek shelter, we have to seek guidance. And in order to do that, we have to be honest with people. I need help here. This is my doubts. This is my struggle. Devotees help each other in this way. Doesn't mean we should just dump all the thoughts, the rubbish thoughts on people that's in our minds. That's prajalpa. But in a constructive way, to actually seek necessary, essential help that we require. By revealing some of the principal anarthas that may be disturbing us and helping each other in this. That's an important part of developing relationships as friends, as Vaishnavas. Yes? At least that's my understanding with what Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj was speaking about openness. Would you like to elaborate? Even if you wouldn't like to, you can do anyway.
Bhaktivedanta Maharaj often talked about. Actually, one thing he said in terms of disciple and guru-disciple relationship was that he would always say the times that you least feel like being open with me or least feel like being open with others is the time you need to connect with Vaishnavas and Guru most. And so that's the time you should actually come running forwards, even though you feel like running away. And he would show by example how to be open. He was very open with his own process. I know most of you here probably at some point or another heard something or read something either through the internet or through the temple especially during the last 12 months before he departed. He made his whole process very available to everybody. So he set a wonderful example of being open. But he also pointed out that, when we're open, we should do it in such a way that it's uplifting for our consciousness and another person's consciousness. Actually, he said once, I remember, he said if the words that are coming out of our mouth are not going to uplift our consciousness or another person's consciousness, then it's not worth saying. But at the same time, he encouraged that we have healthy devotee relationships and that we're honest about our struggles as well as our successes. So,
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for being so open. Even though you didn't want to. Anyone else?
Very much. I was just wondering, how can we gauge whether or not we're being sincere in our actions, and if we're not being sincere, how do we develop that sincerity?
Sincerity means to honestly follow without duplicity, without hypocrisy. Hari. Corey, Prabhu, you always have nice definitions.
Wasn't quite expecting that.
I wasn't either.
Being true to your purpose.
Shruti Dharma Prabhu.
Sincerity is something that, when we're in the association of devotees, it's something that becomes available to each one of us, because the others can see our actions, others can see our behavior, and that's why the principle of sadhusanga is such an important principle. We ourselves often are sincere, we feel we're sincere, but others can see beyond us. And if we're able to listen to others, then very much we'll know that sincerity is a principle that we will endeavour for, but others will very much tell us if we're off or not as sincere as we thought we were, and may correct us. So that's one way in the association of Vaishnavas that we're very much. And hence Rupa Goswami speaks of Panchanga Bhakti, and the first thing he speaks on is Sadhu Sangha. That so long as we remain in the association of sadhus, or good devotees, or Vaishnavas of good standing, then we're always in the safest position, whether it's sincerity, whether it's remaining open, whether it's offences, they'll be able to correct us.
Thank you. Vishnumurti Prabhu.
Just keep moving like that. Yeah. It shouldn't face him, that's all.
I would say that our sincerity is something we should be prepared to have challenged, because we aren't where we want to be and where we have to be. That's something in the future. And as we approach Krishna consciousness, one degree of sincerity is enough to be on one level. But then there's other degrees of sincerity that will be requested from Krishna in our hearts and from Guru and from the devotees to rise to. So that we have to allow our sincerity to be challenged and to grow. And then we can go forward in all the varieties of situations that we encounter in our devotional service. And the sincerity will actually be the qualification that gives us the ability to advance and attain purified state of consciousness. Maharaj mentioned about the transcending of the modes of material nature. This is not an easy task. Very, very challenging for a conditioned soul to attempt to transcend the modes of material nature. So again, the reason why our sincerity, we have to practice getting determined sincerity, so that when the challenges come, we can embrace them and we can succeed.
Thank you, Prabhu. Anyone else like to say something about sincerity?
I just thought of an interesting point to contribute, Maharaj, which maybe you... Did I need it? I thought of an interesting point to contribute, which perhaps you want to shed light on. And that's that, as you know, Krishna killed many demons, but there was the 2 demons that Baladev killed, which meant that Krishna wasn't going to kill these demons for us. We had to kill them ourselves. And one of them is, I can't remember which one it was, but it referred to this principle of not being sincere to your purpose. Not being sincere, but being duplicitous. And that's something for us to deal with, because unless we deal with it, what would you say? We say God helps those who help themselves. If we're not prepared to address that within ourselves, then what hope do we have to proceed or to receive mercy if we can't even be, to some degree, sincere about it? So Baladev killed those demons, and it's our responsibility to deal with it and not to pass the buck on that. Perhaps you maybe remember that.
Thank you. Beautiful answers. In essence, sincerity is cultivating a genuine desire that is free of duplicity, hypocrisy. Desire to serve, the desire to follow. Baladev killed Pralambasura and Dhenukasura. And these particular demons, lusty inclinations, desire for profit, adoration, and distinction, the pride of thinking, I know. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his song Vidyaravilase, he talks about all his high studies. And he said, all I've gotten out of all these high studies is I've become a foolish ass with this huge burden of all this academic knowledge on me. And it's only been a burden to make me proud. So pride, lusty inclinations, desire for profit, adoration, distinctions, and basic insincerity. These demons or anarthas within us have to be conquered by our diligent, determined following of the orders of the spiritual master. It's not something that just comes automatically. Yes, we chant the holy name and become purified, but if we don't diligently follow these principles, then we can't really access the potency of the holy name in full. Chanting of the holy names accesses Krishna to remove all anarthas, but without seriously following the instructions of the spiritual master and making diligent efforts to be sincere. We're not following the order of the spiritual master because we want profit, adoration, and distinction out of it. We're not following the process of Krishna consciousness because we want a high position, because we want material profits. We're not following Krishna consciousness because we want power over others. We want worship of others. We're not following Krishna consciousness because we want elevation to the heavenly planets, or mystic powers, or even liberation. All of those things are signs of insincerity. We're following the order of the spiritual master. We're following the teachings of Krishna because we want to please Krishna, because we want to serve Krishna, because we want to love Krishna. We don't need anything else. Then we must be determined. We must be diligent to overcome these, to not give in to these demons within us. The pralambasura of wanting to enjoy and exploit others, to want profit, adoration, distinction. The Dhenukasura of basic, Pralambasura, he was an anartha where he presented himself as a great devotee, but he had ulterior motives. That's Pralambasura. We present ourselves as a great devotee, but we have ulterior motives, selfish motives. That's in all of us, is it not? We have to very, very conscientiously by hearing from the spiritual master and following the spiritual master, we have to overcome those tendencies, those demons within us. And Dhenukasura, he wanted to just enjoy all Krishna's fruits for himself. Yes? We shouldn't want to enjoy the fruits of our devotional service. All these are signs of insincerity. Sincere devotee, we're following without duplicity, without a separate agenda. We're doing it all because we want to please Guru, Vaishnavas, and Krishna. And when we have that, people trust us. If you're giving a person a lesson, if they think that you're giving me this lesson because you're trying to get something out of me, or you're trying to gain, you have something to gain by giving me this lesson, are they going to trust you? And if they don't trust you, whatever you say isn't really going to have a deep effect in them. But if they feel, this person, whatever they're speaking, it's for me. Krishna, because of this person's because of this person's sincerity, Krishna speaking through her, or Krishna speaking through him to me. So yes, we must endeavor, as Gauri Prabhu has said, by following these words that are coming through Guru Tattva. Does that answer your question? Does that address your particular...
My sincerity definitely helps me.
No, you're just helping us. Very well, son. Prabhupada, if there was the two things that Prabhupada pleaded most to all of his disciples, and that means everyone, for all generations, is to chant Hare Krishna and be sincere. Haribol. So please chant Hare Krishna and be sincere. But we should end now, because it is becoming sincerely late. Sri Vangananda Prabhu, would you like to add anything before we end?
Just one little thing.
Please.
One thing is sincerity, I have to admit, eludes me. Always has. But the other thing is that it appears that sincerity could also be defined in another way, as our willingness to understand what faults and defects we have from our spiritual masters, and our willingness to rectify them by following the guidance of our spiritual masters and the orders of the spiritual masters. That's for me.
It's beautiful, thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Ki. Should we have kirtan, or would you like to take prasad now? Krishnamurti Prabhu, what is your verdict?
Kirtan.
Thank you. It's hotter than this. And yet they keep growing. But if someone would like, you can open door. This is my last chance to have a program with all of you in this trip to London. Tomorrow, with Krishna's grace, I will be boarding an airplane back to Bombay. I've been away from Bombay for 5 months. But I'll miss all of you desperately. Especially Varuna Prabhu's Mridanga playing. You are certainly one of the most dynamic mridanga players in Lord Brahma's creation. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare